series for SAP Business One. Today we're going to discuss a new functionality in SAP Business One version 8.82, which is called the blanket agreement. The blanket agreement is a feature now that allows you to actually create for a business partner, a customer or a vendor, an agreement for repetitive orders, and then that agreement could be linked to sales and other documents. The key business value is to secure repeat business. It gives you greater accuracy in estimating long-term expected revenues. It provides a comprehensive fixed price. It decreases costs, reduces paper flow due to more streamlined ordering processing. And you can display and analyze blanket agreement information. So let's talk about that and where it is in the system. So if we go into our business partners, and we see our blanket agreement. Okay, so let's go in here and let's actually create a blanket agreement. So we're going to add a new one. We're going to select a customer. And let's take here. So we can see here we have our blanket agreement for this customer. We see our number. We have a start date and an end date. So let's actually say this is going to go for a year. So let's go 08, 09, 13. We also have a termination date. We can terminate the agreement before it's over, before it's completed, or we can just have the termination date whenever we want to close it. We can put a description. So we're just going to say this is a new blanket agreement. And a little bit about the tabs here. You can see now we have the general information. We have the agreement type. We have two types. We have a general and a specific. The main difference is that the general will ignore the prices in the blanket agreement. So a general agreement will select the prices of the items based on standard SAP, based on the setup of the customers and the items. If we select a specific, we can then use the pricing that we decide in the blanket agreement. So you can see here when we have specific, the ignore special price specified in blanket agreement is not checked, all right, as opposed to general where we're ignoring it. So we're going to select a specific so we can actually choose our pricing. You can have a settlement probability if you want. This would be, let's say you feel that 90% of this order will be shipped and completed. You also have a status. Again, this is also controlled by the user authorizations. By default, we start off in draft mode, so we can actually create a blanket order in a draft mode, and then it can go through the approval process, the standard approval process in SAP, if you want to approve it to make it active. We can then approve the agreement. Once it's approved, it is active. We can place it on hold for a certain amount of time, and again, we can terminate it. If we terminate it, we would again update the termination date. So we're just going to go here, and we're going to set it up. You can assign it to a specific owner. Again, I'm logged in as Jason, so I can do that, or I can select my owner. I can set a renewal, a reminder that this date is going to, let's say we're going to end next year, so I may want to create another blanket agreement for the following year, or contact the business partner to renegotiate. So I can set a reminder. So if I put, say, 5 days, again, these are my options, I will get a reminder through the standard SAP alert system 5 days before the blanket agreement is going to end. So let's go in here and let's look at the items. Let's select some items. We're going to grab, let's say we're going to grab these three, let's grab these two items. Okay, so you can see here. Now again, we can put a unit price. So let's go back into SAP. Let's look. The base price is 400 for this, so we're going to give them a special price. We're going to do this one at 300. We're going to look at this one here. This has a price of 200. So we're going to go and we're going to give this 150. Okay. Some information on here. You have the planned. So we're going to plan this out. So let's say it's for a year, and we were going to do 100 a year. So we break that up, and we want to plan that, like say 100 a month. So we want to say that would be 1,200 planned. And let's say this one here we want to do 600 plans. The planning information is the total amount of the quantity over this given period. So in this case, with 12 months, we're going to do 150. We have some information here in the fields that will be updated as we go along. We see the cumulative quantity and the cumulative amount. Okay, that's what's being used up on the blanket agreement, which we'll see when we get into the documents. We have what's open. So right now, the entire 1,200 is open and the entire amount. Okay, we can also add an end of warranty date if we want. The documents will be filled throughout the system, so you'll see as we go and generate sales orders and documents, this information will be filled. You can also do attachments outside of SAP. You can browse. Let's say that we had a signature on this blanket agreement and we want to import that file in. We can import that in SAP. Again, this is a functionality in the 8.82 versions, which allow me to create attachments outside of the SAP document and put it in the system. Okay, so we have that approved, so let's add that. And we can see how if we go back, we have now number 3. All right, we can also add remarks if we want. And the nice thing about the blanket agreement, it is actually shown in a lot of places. For example, in the Materials Resource Planner, you can now go in and you can use these blanket agreements. So even though I haven't shipped or done anything with that blanket agreement, I can, for Materials Resource Planning, I can bring that in. So if you see here, when we're looking at the wizard, we're going to plan our purchasing. So we can include blanket purchase order agreements from both sales from vendors and blanket sales order agreements from customers. So we can add that into the Materials Resource Planner. It gives us a better feel of what we need to order. It's also on our cash flow statement. So you can see here that we can add blanket agreements on the cash flow statement. Again, this helps us better judge our revenues and our cash flow positions within SAP. So let's go in now and do it. Let's actually create a sales order. So we're going to pick our person here. We're going to select these 2 lines. Okay, and you notice a couple things. You'll see here that the price is in blue. The reason that's being is that because we have the special price, as we discussed before. If we look here, the base price is 400, but because we specified this blanket agreement to be specific, we're using the price from the blanket agreement, and the same here. And you can see the blanket agreement here if you want to go in. So we're just going to go here and we're going to add this. Okay, let's call it back up. So you can see here if we click on the blanket agreement, you can see here on the items, we have our items. You can see that none of this information has been updated yet because we just created a sales order. We haven't really shipped or done anything. But the documents are now here. So you can see that all documents related are on here. So again, we're seeing document 278 with the corresponding attachments. So let's cancel that. Let's take this sales order and let's copy it to a delivery. Okay, and again, you can see the information coming over. So we're going to create our delivery ticket. Okay, so we added our delivery ticket. We can go back to the agreement. And again, now you see a change. Because what's happening here is now we've done a delivery. As we know from SAP, the delivery ticket actually reduces the quantity. So by doing this delivery ticket, we have actually reduced our quantity on hand. Because we've done that, we've now affected the items. So you can see here our open quantity now went from 1,200 to 1,199, and we have the cumulative quantity of 1. Okay. Let's go back. You can see everything here has been affected, and again, you can look at the documents, and we have our documents. And again, we would take this sales order. Actually, we would take the delivery. So let's find our delivery ticket. And let's copy our delivery ticket to an AR invoice. And again, you're watching the flow of the blanket agreement coming all the way through. So now we added our AR invoice. So let's close this. And let's go back to our blanket agreement. And again, we still have our cumulative quantity, our cumulative amount. We can now see all the documents involved. There are some reports. So if we go into the reports, we can look at the blanket agreement list. Okay, we can specify the blanket agreement types and statuses. So if we look here, we can actually take a specific number. We can go by a BP code, names, and so on. We can also go by the agreement types because we can click here and we can select what we want to see. Do we want to see just specifics or both? We can look at agreement statuses. Maybe we want to look at everything that's in a draft mode. Okay, or it's on hold. We want to go back and review that. We can do it that way. And we can also look at what's been filled. Let's just go look at everything. Okay, so you can see here we have some agreements, and we can see which ones are filled. So, for example, if we look at this agreement here, number 1, okay, we filled it. We've actually sold more over it, but we filled it because we planned for 50. And look at our cumulative, and we have no open amount. So this is full. This one, number 2, you can say the same thing. We have an open quantity. We haven't really done anything with this one, so this is still open. So we have these not filled, and we have our different types. So again, this allows me to go through and select. I can collapse and look at it this way, or I can go to an expand mode and open them up this way. So again, this report allows me to go in and look at everything that's on there from a general standpoint. If I had a lot, I can actually go through. So let's just go to the agreement types, and we only want specifics. And we're just going to see ours right there. We may want to go back and look at everything that is full. And again, we would see the one that was full. So the report gives us some flexibility to go through and that stuff. So again, it is a nice feature within SAP. And to review, let's go back. So we can see now the new feature is in Business Partners, and we have our blanket agreement. You can see you can define a blanket agreement to a business partner. So it can be a sales blanket agreement, or for vendors, it could be a purchase blanket agreement. You have the ability of putting in a start date and ending date. You have the general information, the agreement type, a specific agreement. We'll use the pricing that's set up in the agreement. A general agreement will use the pricing set up within standard SAP, within the business partners and the items and the pricing levels. You can look at the settlement probability. In this case, we figure we're going to ship 90% of this order. You can look at the statuses. Again, in this case, we're approved. By default, they'll start in draft mode. That's controlled by user authorization. So if you want someone to create the agreements and you want to go through an approval process before they go out, you can actually set them up as drafts, let them go through the SAP approval process, and then a manager or somebody can actually approve them. Once it's approved, you can now put this on hold. So if I actually put this on hold, I won't be able to link any documents to it until it's taken off hold, or I can actually terminate it. I can assign it to an owner when I create it, the person who actually did it, and I can do a renewal. So what I'm saying is that this is going to end next year. So 5 days before renewals, I want an alert. This gives me the ability to contact the business partner to renegotiate or see what I need to do. These are the items that are involved in the blanket agreement. So you can look at the item numbers. You can look at the planned quantity. So in this case, we planned on this blanket agreement within the next year to actually sell 1,200 and 600 of the item here. It tells me the cumulative quantity. This is what has actually been shipped or sold to the BP with the corresponding amount. And then you can see the open and the open amount. And again, you have the total information here. It tracks in detail all the documents that are related to this blanket agreement. So in this case, we started off with a sales order, and then that sales order you can see is closed because the delivery ticket was created. So we have a delivery ticket which was also closed because the AR invoice is created. The AR invoice remains open until payment, and then eventually that will be closed. So you have a complete audit trail within the system here. Attachments, like we see with most standard SAP we have now, a new functionality in SAP is to attach outside of the SAP. You can browse. Okay, so you can pick up information from other places. Like, let's say in this case, we wanted to attach a PDF of the signed actual agreement. We can actually attach it into here. Right? And it's under the blanket agreements. As we discussed, the blanket agreements are throughout SAP. So if you look at your cash flow report, we can now include these blanket agreements. So we can anticipate cash flow because we know we'll be getting paid down the road. We can do that, and we can add that to our cash flows. If we look at our MRP, our Materials Resource Planner, we open up the wizard. And let's take one I already have set up here. You can see here that we have the option now, source of demand and supply. We can look at purchase orders, as well as the blanket purchase agreements, sales orders, as well as the blanket sales order agreements. So we have the ability of actually putting the information into the system here. Again, on our documents, you see the blanket agreement. So in this case, you can see that this sales order, which was closed, you can then drill into the blanket agreement here. So that recaps our session today on SAP Business One's blanket agreement. Again, the key business value is helps you secure repeat business. It gives you greater accuracy in estimating long-term exposure revenues, again, the cash flow. It also helps in your materials resource planning for manufacturing to plan what you need to manufacture or purchase. It provides competitive fixed pricing, so we can set this agreement on its own unique pricing. Again, and it just helps decrease costs, reduce paper due to more streamlined order processing. And then the information is in the system. So once again, that concludes today's session. These sessions will be available on our website. Just come join us at michellgroup.com, and you'll be able to have this where you can watch the entire presentation. Once again, we thank you for your time.